Holy crap. Yep, that's walnut. And yes, it's 8/4 walnut. How much did this cost? I'm not sure. Customer actually sourced it for me. I'm going to be making a pretty cool kitchen island, 3 shelves. Customer also sourced these beautiful walnut legs. I've got to mill down all of this. It's really heavy, and right now it is really hot. It's like 9 in the morning, and I'm already sweating, so it's going to be a long day. So I got all the boards planed down. They're pretty much 1.75 inches on the money. So I took a 1/4 inch off. I'm soaking wet with sweat. That took, for reference, that took an hour and a half just to plane 9 boards down. An hour and a half just for that. Also, this was a fresh bag when I started. All walnut.
So I don't have a joiner. It's probably the next on the list of tool purchases for me. But I will say using this track saw does do a pretty good job of giving myself a true side to start with. So the customer sourced this wood for me. Typically I buy straight 3 sides, but because they purchased this wood, it came not rough, but definitely wasn't straight, and that's why I'm putting this edge on there. On this particular day, cutting through this wood, I've got my vacuum working, my saw working, and a lot of fans going, and pow! I tripped the breaker for my whole shop. Has never happened before. Luckily, it was an easy fix.
I like to lay out the table pretty close before I go to cutting shelves. These are 4-inch legs. I want to have a 24-inch final top. I'm going to have a 1-inch inset here. And then I'm notching the shelves into these legs 2 inches on each side. So in the middle here, I have 14 inches. If I add 2 inches that way and 2 inches that way, that gives me 18-inch shelves with a 24-inch top. And knowing that, I come over here, now that I have a straight edge on everything, I can kind of lay out the puzzle pieces to know which boards I'm going to glue to others so that I end up with 2 18-inch surfaces and 1 24-inch surface.
All of the surfaces are 3 boards glued together, so the only one that has to have smooth sides on both sides is the middle board. So here I only have to rip 3 boards, which are the 3 middle boards going on each top. The next step is I lay out and mark where I'm going to do my dominoes with my Festool domino joiner. This is very important because I like to make sure the spacing is consistent, but I also want to make sure that I mark the approximate location of the end of my table, because I have in the past ended up cutting off the end of my table right where a domino sat. I actually screwed up here and put way too much glue in these holes. You'll see me beat them into submission, but I learned my lesson. I didn't do it on the next board. I'm not sure why, but this glue up gave me a ton of trouble. One of the boards was bowed a little bit. I don't know if that's why, but I ended up using the clamps to kind of get everything together, and after it was done, everything was fine, but man, it gave me some trouble. Look how much I'm sweating. Like I said earlier in the video, I left the outside edges rough, and now I'm coming back with the track saw and cutting it down to size. Next, I've got to create a jig so that I can route out the notches in the legs that these tops will be going into. These tops will not have any rails supporting them, and they will support themselves. Therefore, I've got to notch them pretty deep into the leg. Keep in mind, I had to do 8 of these notches, so I'm only going to show you one. When I got done routing, I got as low as I could go, but didn't get all the way down. So I had to finish off with my chisel. I left the jig in place to help me with the chisel, but since I made it out of plywood, I ended up damaging it, so I actually ended up making about 3 of these jigs.
These walnut slabs, as with most walnut, comes with a fair amount of these knot holes. What I like to do is come in and kind of break away anything that's loose, bark or whatever. Then I will take the sawdust from my sander and kind of fill in some of the deeper parts. And then behind that, I will come with Starbond. This is the dark brown, medium thick. It does real good with the sawdust, hardens pretty good. And then sand it back smooth and it's good to go.
So I tried the brown and it was not playing nicely. So I went with some ultra thin or thin clear, and then I topped it with the brown. And once I sanded it, it was perfect. What I'm attempting to explain here, but my mic actually died, is when I came up with a design on this table, I decided I wanted to do a pretty simple round over. I wanted the legs to speak for themselves. And the way I did the notches, when I'm doing the round over, I don't want there to be a gap when it gets to the leg. So what I'm doing here is I'm marking the distance off of the sides or the corners so that where the notches actually meet the table, there's no gap from where I did the round over. Now, as I'm using my router, I have a place to start and a place to end.
I will be finishing this island with Rubio Monocoat, which requires or recommends sanding to 150 grit. This is 120 grit right now, so I'm about to take it down to 150 grit before I assemble. I'm going to hand sand all of the roundovers and then sand the rest of the tops, and then I'll be on to assembly. I'm going to try my best not to have any type of supports for the top and the middle shelf, but the bottom shelf, since it's so low to the ground, I might as well put something in there to keep it from sagging. So I'm going to take a piece of wood and kind of router it into the bottom here.
So it's finally time for assembly. Put some glue in these notches, and then I proceed to beat this leg into submission. It was a little tighter than I wanted them, but in the end, I'm pretty happy with it. Make sure to use a piece of wood so I didn't damage the legs.
Okay, so I got the first two legs in place, and I'm gonna wait for them to dry. I was able to get everything pretty snug just by beating on it. I don't have to clamp everything, but I did have to use one long clamp to get that into place. Now, I don't have enough long clamps to do both sides, so I'm gonna let this sit in the clamps for a little bit, and then I'm gonna start sanding on the top, and then in about 45 minutes or an hour, we'll take these clamps off and put the other two legs on. The end of this walnut top has a pretty significant crack right in the heart of the tree. These right here should be fine. I'll fill those in with some epoxy, but this one right here has the potential to be a problem. So I didn't show it on video, but I'm going to inlay this bow tie. Problem is, I gotta stand this thing up to get on top of it to do that. So I'll probably do that on top of this table.
So I stood in front of my camera for most of this view, like an idiot. But anyways, this is me applying Rubio Monocoat. Rubio Monocoat is a two-part mixture that you literally wipe on, wipe off. I love this stuff. It is fantastic. If you do your research, you'll learn this stuff is amazing. Basically, I cover the surface as good as I can, and then wipe it back smooth. You get a pretty good sheen off of this, and of course, an excellent protection. It takes about 5 days to fully cure, so I do wear gloves, and I'm very careful about touching the furniture. You don't want your skin oils and stuff to get on it. But look at that color, absolutely insane.
Gonna try something new. I got the N3 Nano by BlackTail Studio, which is essentially a ceramic coating for the table. This island is going to be a highly functional island. It's going to be worked on a lot, and yes, there will be natural wear and tear, but the more I can protect it, the better. This kit comes with applicator pads, microfiber towels. We have a hard coat. We have a top coat. I'm about to read these instructions to make sure I do everything correctly, but overall I'm excited. Should put a little bit more of a sheen on this table, but ultimately provide a lot more protection.
So I watched a YouTube video on this stuff, and it does say to do small sections at a time. I was honestly kind of terrified that I was going to mess something up, but it ended up being super easy. As you can see, you wipe it on, you make sure you get good coverage, and then you just essentially wipe it right back off, and it is very easy. I've now done 3 coats of the BlackTail hard coat. I actually used almost the entire bottle. Now I'm going to come back with the top coat, which I've read will put a little more sheen on it. So looking forward to that, see how it works. This may be the nicest piece of furniture I have ever built. I am so proud of this piece. The walnut is not something I get to work with very often, but it is absolutely gorgeous. I tried to keep the construction simple to show off these beautiful legs and amazing grain in this wood. Thank you for watching. If you've made it this far, please like and subscribe, and we'll see you next time.